Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 1176th regular meeting and public hearing of the Livonia City Planning Commission. I wish to inform all persons in the audience that for petitions on tonight's agenda, which involve a question of zoning, the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to City Council, and the City Council, after holding their own public hearing, will make the final determination as to whether a petition is approved or denied. The Planning Commission holds the only public hearing on requests for preliminary plats and/or vacating petitions. The Commission's recommendation is forwarded to City Council for the final determination as to whether the petition is accepted or rejected. If a petition requesting a waiver of use or site plan is denied tonight, the petitioner will have 10 days in which to appeal the decision in writing to City Council. Resolutions adopted by the City Planning Commission become effective 7 days after the date of adoption. Planning Commission and professional staff have reviewed these petitions upon their filing. The staff has furnished the Commission with both approving and denying resolutions, which the Commission may or may not use depending on the outcome of proceedings tonight. If our Secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Present.
Mrs. McHugh.
Here.
Mr. Bonjero. Here. Mr. Long.
Here.
Mr. Ventura. Here. Caremagno is here. Chairman Wolshaw.
Is here. And also with us tonight, we have Mark Tormina and Stephanie Reese from our Planning Department. For the folks in our audience, the format of the meeting tonight will be, we will call each of the items that are on our agenda. Our planning staff will give background information on the item. Then we'll ask that the petitioner come forward and speak to the item. We may have some questions for them. And then anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak for or against a petition can also come forward when we call for you. So with that, we'll start with the public hearing section of our agenda, item number 1.
Is petition 2021-08-02-15 submitted by CESO Inc. requesting waiver use approval of all plans required by section 6.26 of the Livonia's Vision 21 zoning ordinance in connection with a proposal to redevelop the properties at 13950 Merriman Road and 31324, 330, and 374 Schoolcraft Road to allow for the redevelopment and expansion of an existing Speedway gas station located on the northeast corner of Schoolcraft and Merriman Roads and the southwest quarter of Section 23.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. And we did receive a note, Mr. Tormina, that this is to be tabled indefinitely, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this item was tabled already, and the petitioner is asked to have it remain that way for now. So we will pass this item, and this will be coming back to a future meeting where we'll give notice to anyone interested. All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Tormina. With that, we can move on to item number 2, Mr. Secretary.
That is petition 2021-08-02-16 submitted by Melody Hastings, requesting waiver use approval pursuant to section 6.13 of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance to operate a daycare nursery called Kid Ventures Child Care Center at 10531 Farmington Road, located on the west side of Farmington Road between Orange Lawn Avenue and Plymouth Road in the northeast quarter of section 33.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina.
Thank you. Again, there's a request to operate a daycare center on property that is located on the west side of Farmington Road. This is south of Plymouth Road. The zoning of the property is C1, local business. The parcel size is roughly 0.6 of an acre. It has 100 feet of frontage on Farmington Road and a parcel depth of 286 feet. The site contains a one-story office building that measures roughly 4,100 square feet in size. It includes 23 off-street parking spaces currently. This is one of 3 buildings that is part of a multi-tenant medical office complex, which is known as Orange Lawn Professional Center. The subject building was constructed in 1963, and the regulations pertaining to daycare nurseries, fall under section 6.13 of the zoning ordinance. The petitioner has applied to the state of Michigan for a license to operate a child care center. She is awaiting an inspection in order to confirm the maximum number of children that will be allowed at this facility. The ages would range from infant to 12 years. Based on the submitted floor plan, Kid Venture would occupy the entire building. The interior layout, which is shown here, includes a large lobby area as well as a reception, several classrooms, a kitchen, and restrooms. The site is accessible from or by a single driveway that extends off Farmington Road. This driveway runs along the south side of the property and extends further west, providing access to the building at the rear, which is 10533 Farmington Road. The petitioner has informed us that the properties all operate under a cross-access and parking agreement. In fact, we did receive correspondence from the property owners verifying that. In terms of an outdoor play area, the zoning ordinance does require an area no less than 5,000 square feet. In contrast, the state requires a minimum of 1,200 square feet. The proposed play area shown on the plans measures roughly 3,000 square feet, so it's between both what the state requires and what the city requires. The reduction from the city's requirements is something that can be waived by city council. The outdoor play area is shown occupying a portion of the parking lot behind the building, and it would be surrounded by an obscuring vinyl fence. I believe there's also in your packets some new information that shows what that fence would look like. In terms of parking for child care centers, the requirement is one space for each employee plus enough off-street space for the safe and convenient loading and offloading of students. The revised plan shows 14 parking spaces with a one-way circulation pattern. You may recall from the previous plan, there were 11 parking spaces and all 90-degree parking. What's changed with this plan is the play area is now shown in the northeast portion of the parking lot directly behind the building. There would be a single driveway that located in the southwest corner of the building, so vehicles as they come in off Farmington Road would pull in this driveway here. They would then have the chance to offload or pick up the children closest to the door back here, which is behind the building. Then they would proceed along this drive aisle. This is a one-way circulation, and then exit out at the southwest corner of the site and have the ability to turn left and then proceed out to Farmington Road. So there are 9 angled parking spaces located along the south side of the property. There's an additional 4 or 5 parking spaces located here in the northwest corner. So that is the most significant change from the plan that you reviewed at the study meeting. No trash enclosures are shown on the site plan. All trash would be disposed via weekly curbside pickup. There's no exterior building modifications shown, and the site would be allowed one wall sign, a maximum of 36 square feet in area. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence on this item.
Yes, please.
First item is from our engineering division, and it's dated August 30th and reads, "The existing building is currently serviced by public water main, storm sewer, and sanitary sewer. The submitted drawings do not indicate any modifications to the existing leads, and we do not believe there will be any further impacts to the existing systems. Should changes to the existing services be required, the owner shall submit revised plans to this office to determine if permits will be required. It should be noted that the developer may be required to obtain a permit from the Wayne County Department of Public Service should any work occur within the Farmington Road right-of-way." That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter dated August 26th from the Livonia Fire and Rescue. They indicate that they have no objections to the proposal. That letter is signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Division of Police and signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. That letter is dated September 15th. A letter dated September 13th from the Inspection Department that reads, "Pursuant to your request, the above referenced petition has been reviewed and the following is noted. Number 1, this petition is a change of use and would require that the building meet all Michigan building codes, including the Michigan Barrier Free Code. This will be addressed further at the time of our plan review if this project moves forward. And number 2, signage was not reviewed at this time. This department has no further objections to this petition," and that letter is signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. Next, we did receive a letter from the Department of Finance indicating a past due water and sewer charges of $227.72. We did receive confirmation that payment was received for that charge. And then a letter from the Office of the Treasurer dated August 25th, indicating that they have no objections to the proposal. That letter is signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. Then we have some correspondence coming from, the first is dated August 16th, and it reads, "To whom it may concern, the staff and visitors of Kid Venture Child Care Center, Inc. have my permission to use parking spaces at 1053 through 10535 Farmington Road, Livonia, Michigan 48150. Sincerely, M.H. Neal, M.D." Next, we have email correspondence dated September 19th, and it reads, "Dear City of Livonia Planning Commission, I am asking for approval of Melody Hastings' request to operate a daycare nursery, Kid Venture Child Care Center at 10531 Farmington Road. Thank you." And that letter is signed by M.H. Neal, M.D., who gives their address as 10533 Farmington Road, Livonia, Michigan 48150. And lastly, we have correspondence that reads, "Dear Livonia Planning Commission, I am writing to ask that you please grant Melody Hastings permission to operate a daycare nursery, Kid Venture Child Care Center at 10531 Farmington Road." And that, this email correspondence was sent by Sandra Neal, M.D., also providing an address of 10533 Farmington Road, Livonia, Michigan 48150. And that is the extent of the correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Is there any questions for our planning staff? Sam?
Mr. Chair. Mark, I noticed in there 9-foot wide parking spots here on the plan. What is normal? What do we normally ask for?
Those would typically be 10 feet wide. And since those would be providing parking for both staff and patrons or customers of the facility, we would ask that those be 10 feet as opposed to 9 feet. So the result could be the loss of one parking space. We sometimes allow 9 feet for employee parking, but in this case, most of those parking spaces will be used for both employees and parents. So we would ask that the ones closest to the building be 10 feet wide. And what this plan doesn't show, and they'll have to accommodate either way, is barrier-free parking. So she'll have to provide at least one barrier-free space, probably that first space closest to the building.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I would figure that getting kids in and out of cars, those that don't drop off at the door, you've got to have access to get a child in and out of a car. Plus, there's cross easement parking, you said, and they can park anywhere in this property, right?
That is correct. So what we were able to confirm is that the property immediately to the west, which has surplus parking, there is a cross-access and parking agreement. So their customers or employees would be allowed to park in that adjacent parking lot. So parking should not be an issue.
Parking's no issue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagno. Any other questions for our planning staff? Mr. Bonjero?
Mr. Chair, and forgive me, I wasn't at the study meeting last week. So they're proposing an outdoor playground of 3,000 square feet.
Correct.
But what's required is 5,000?
The city requires 5,000 square feet. The state requires 1,200 square feet.
Oh, okay. So this goes to council then?
Yeah, council would have to consider this and does have the ability to modify that requirement.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any other questions? If not, our petitioner, I believe, is in the audience. If you want to come forward, you can come speak to your petition. Good evening.
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Good, good, thank you. And we just ask that you start with your name and address for our record.
Yes, my name is Melody Hastings, and my address is 2380 Stockmeyer Boulevard, Westland, Michigan, 48186.
Very good, thank you, Ms. Hastings. And anything else that you'd like to tell us about your petition that Mr. Toromina hasn't already covered?
No, I think he's done a great job. We are, looking to bring affordable childcare to the Livonia area because that's kind of like our goal, and I think that's about it.
Okay, great. If there's nothing else that you would like to present, we can see if there's any questions for you from any of the commissioners. Mrs. Smiley.
Yes, I have a couple questions. Ms. Hastings, could you, have you had any experience in childcare?
Yes.
What we want to tell us about that?
So I have, well, we both have, because we're partners.
I'm her business partner.
Okay. And want to give us your name and address?
Yes, I'm Angelique Armstrong, and my address is 17238 Garfield in Redford, Michigan, 48240.
Okay, great.
Okay, and we've had a previous childcare center, and we've had that childcare center for about 2 years. Prior to that, I worked in multiple childcare centers as a childcare provider. I've also received my CDA for certification to be like a program director for childcare, and that's about my experience.
So you have a ZA endorsement and you have 2 years' experience, and that was a licensed childcare center, I assume, right?
Yes,
Okay, good. And what ages are you taking?
2 months to 12 years.
2 months to 12 years. Wow, okay,
Well, like before and after school care for the school age.
okay. And do you have like transportation to the elementary buildings, or?
Well, I do have like my own transportation that I have, but we are licensed to do we'll be licensed to do transportation, but I'm using my own personal transportation as of now.
But they could also come
Okay.
by bus? I
Yeah,
mean,
they come by bus.
Okay,
Oh, like saying like they can drop off? Oh, yeah, for sure, by
okay.
bus.
And your hours of operation are gonna be
6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m.
6 to 6:30?
Yes,
Long day.
I know.
Okay, and you'll have, the state will mandate what kind of ratios and stuff you have?
Yes,
right?
they have to
That's
come out
been
and
your
do
experience?
their own inspection, along with multiple other inspections. But yes, they do the ratio and the square footage of rooms, of how many you can have, and things like that.
Okay. Do you anticipate any problems with the size of your outdoor play?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
Do you anticipate any problems with the outside of your outdoor play area? It's bigger than what the state mandates, so you should
Yeah.
be,
Yeah, that should be perfect. Because we don't plan to have like park equipment anyway, just, just bikes or just portables, slides, things like that. They could go out, do some hula hooping, some jump roping, run around, just let off some energy. Some fresh air.
I'm aware. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bonjero?
just a couple of questions. One, how many employees we have at the site?
Well, I plan to have, because we have 4 classrooms, so I plan to have 2 teachers in each class. So I guess that's about 8.
That's good. Where this playground is proposed, there's a concrete privacy wall that exists on that property. So I was out there today just checking it out, and I've seen it around the city before. It's got vertical steel channels, and the fence itself is concrete slabs, probably 8 by 8, 4 inches thick, and 1 or 2 of the sections are failing. So I think you need to be aware that needs to be secured, because each slab probably weighs at least a couple thousand pounds.
Oh, wow.
And there's a picture, I had a picture,
okay.
but it's given way. So I think that should be something you need to address.
Okay, could I see the picture too? Like,
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I don't know, Mark, do you have it?
I do. Give me a second and I'll show you what those are.
But it's butting up right where your playground is.
oh, okay. Well, that's important to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
While Mark works on getting those pictures up, is there any other questions from any of our commissioners? Mr. Caremagno?
I've got a question. How do you access that playground? Is there going to be a door coming from the building, or are you gonna have to come out of the building into the lot and then into the playground?
We'd probably come out of the door and then enter like the door to the gate to get in, is what I picture. But if it can be different, when I talk to the people that's gonna install it, then that would be good. So if it can just be already wrapped around the door, but I guess probably has to be separate, because like when the parents come in, then they don't have to go in the gate. They can just go in the parking lot and go in the door. So it'll probably come out the door and then go into another gated door,
Okay.
is what I vision.
And then what's the flooring for the playground? What do you do? That's asphalt there. So what do you do with that? Tell me a little bit about what you do there.
Well, I'm considering putting like a turf, either depending on which was best as far as budget. Like the green turf, kind of like on a football field, or I was also looking at, it's kind of like a rubber, I had a picture of it. It's like a rubber, what is it? It's like a,
Sam, there's a picture of
yeah,
it.
it's like a rubber mesh.
And the,
It's in our
You see
packet.
that? Yeah, that's
Or in
right
our,
there.
the attachment.
so it won't be asphalt, either be rubber mat or artificial turf there?
Yeah,
Okay.
just something soft. They fall a lot, so I don't want them hurting
Is this it?
themselves on that cement.
No, next page.
And then grass is just,
Oh.
can't ride your bike on the grass, so some flat yet safe over here. Okay. Oh, I see the metal ones. you're
Yeah, if
talking
you
about.
look to that right corner, it's pulling apart.
Oh, yeah. It's
in the
probably all
bottom-
those trees.
The bottom corners are broken too.
Okay. Well, I'll look into that.
See what I'm saying right there? See the crack right there?
Mm-hmm.
I would at least secure it,
Like get it sealed or something.
if you can, on
Yeah.
from the other side maybe.
Okay.
If I may,
Good. Yeah, Mr. Tormey.
I'm wondering if that would be part of the state's inspection,
Mm-hmm.
when they look at the
Like the playground. if
the
they-
play,
yeah.
the play area,
The
yeah.
play area is right next to that.
So that may be something you'll have to work with the landlord to get repaired.
Okay.
Nice catch.
All right.
Nice catch, Dave.
You guys keep me around for a reason.
I have one more question.
Mrs. Smiley?
What's your security plan for drop-off and pickup of children?
Well, we plan to meet the parents and they just sign and drop off to us, and then we escort them to their classroom.
So the parent escorts them to and from the classroom?
Well, the parent will, escort them to the door, and then we'll have them sign them in, then we'll just escort them. Staff will escort them to the classroom,
Okay.
so they don't have to like walk through.
And to keep someone that's not a parent out of there, what's the
Oh,
plan?
we'll definitely have a buzzer, like I have to buzz them in for them to get in.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley. Any other questions? All good questions so far. Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item? It doesn't appear to be anyone else. Is there anything, Ms. Hastings or Ms. Armstrong, that you'd like to say before we make our decision?
No, we just hope you guys, accept our petition, and we're looking forward to, again, provide that affordable childcare within the Livonia area. We won't let you guys down.
All right, very good. And one quick question from me. One of the pictures that was sent to us was of the vinyl fence that you're thinking of.
Yes.
And there was two pictures. One, it appears to be a white or gray fence. The other one almost appears to be blue. I don't know if that's just the camera that made it look that way.
They were for white, I just was looking at, because like you see how that one right there is kind of like less you can see in, and the other one is kind of like more you can see in.
Okay,
So I was just, it'll either be between something of those two.
okay,
But
I
it'll
was
be
just,
white.
okay, so I was just more concerned about the color, if
Yeah,
it was gonna be a bright blue or not. Okay, all right, so white fence. Very good, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments from anyone in our audience or the commission, I'll close the public hearing, and a motion is in order.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. McHugh.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that this request to operate a daycare nursery, Kid Venture Child Care Center at 10531 Farmington Road is hereby approved, subject to City Council waiving the minimum size requirement for the outdoor play area and the following conditions. That the site plan as received by Planning Commission on August 23rd, 2021 is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That only conforming signage is approved of this petition, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That no LED light band or exposed neon shall be permitted on the site, including but not limited to the building or around the windows. That the entire outdoor play area shall be surrounded by either a 5-foot chain link fence or wooden/plastic privacy fence. That the parking lot shall be repaired, resealed, and restriped to the satisfaction of the inspection department. That the hours of operation for the childcare facilities shall be limited to 6:00 a.m. to 7:00 p.m. That the tenants of this building shall not engage in any form of solicitation for business within the public right-of-ways of Farmington Road. That the petition shall enter into a conditional agreement limiting the waiver to this user only, with the provision to extend this waiver use approval to a new user only upon approval of the new user by the city council. That the specific plan referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at the time the building permits are applied for, and pursuant to section 19.10 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of the city of Livonia. This approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by city council. And unless a building permit is obtained and construction is commenced, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Is there support?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura?
before I offer support, Mr. McHugh, would you agree with a couple of amendments to your approving resolution? Number one, that the site plan cited in the resolution be the one received on September 20th, 2021,
yeah.
which is the one we have. on
Changing
our-
the parking lot, changing where the parking lot.
Changing the parking lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Number two, that in accordance with Mr. Caramagno's suggestions, that the parking spaces be shown as 10 feet instead
Absolutely.
of 9 feet.
Yep. Thank you.
And I guess finally, or two more. Number three, that the wall repair be included in the petition in accordance with Mr. Bongero's photographs. And finally, that the chain link option and the fencing be eliminated so that it's the vinyl fence.
Stick with the
that
vinyl.
petitioner has shown us.
Sure. Nope, that works.
Those are acceptable to everybody, then I offer a approving resolution.
Anything
Okay.
else? No.
We have an approving resolution offered by Mrs. McHugh, supported by Mr. Ventura with some modifications added to it. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, then if our secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Carabagno votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, motion passes. We'll go to City Council with an approving recommendation. Congratulations to you, and your next step will be to go to City Council, and they'll make the final approvals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I wish you luck on your project.
All right, thanks, I appreciate it, y'all.
All right,
Have a good night.
Thank you, good night. That takes us to the end of our public hearing section of our agenda. We now move on to miscellaneous items, item number 3.
Petition 2021-08-08-05, submitted by Hellier Lewis, requesting site plan approval pursuant to Section 5.01 of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance in connection with a proposal to remodel the exterior of the Citizens Bank at 37307 6 Mile Road, located on the south side of 6 Mile Road between Levan and Newburgh Roads in the northwest quarter of Section 17.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Toromina.
Thank you. This is an after-the-fact request. It involves changes to the exterior of the Citizens Branch Bank located at Newburgh Plaza Shopping Center near the southeast corner of 6 Mile and Newburgh Roads. The property in question is located within a special area development control zone. There are 7 such zones throughout the city that are subject to special regulations. This is per section 5.01 of the zoning ordinance, which includes a provision that requires that all exterior building modifications or alterations first be approved by the city council upon submission of findings by the planning commission. The changes that were completed include painting the exterior brick a bright white, and what I'm showing you right now are the photos of the building before the modifications were made. So you can see what the Citizens Bank looked like prior to the renovations. And then this is a rendering showing somewhat what the changes look like today. We have a couple photos that we'll show in a second. The changes, again, that were completed involved painting the exterior brick a bright white. The upper facade was painted which mostly consists of an ephes material, a bright green. In addition, the main entrance, which is located on the north side of the building facing 6 Mile, has been remodeled. Previously, the entrance was defined by a brick tower feature that had an arched roof line, and the brick on the structure was covered with a composite wood siding, and the roof line was squared off. And this is the tower element, and you can actually see where that arch is located, was located previously. And this is what it looked like prior to. Here's a side shot. These are some photos to kind of give you an idea of the changes as well, with the painting and the green facade. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll read out the correspondence.
Yes, please.
We have a letter from the Engineering Division dated August 19th that reads, the proposed building locations are currently serviced by public water main, sanitary sewer, as well as private storm sewer. Submitted drawings do not indicate any modifications to the existing leads, and we do not believe there will be any further impacts to the existing systems. Should the changes to the existing services be required, the owner shall submit revised plans to this office to determine if building permits are required. And that letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next, a letter of no objection coming from the Department of Public Safety, Livonia Fire and Rescue. That letter is dated August 26th and signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal. A letter from the Inspection Department dated September 20th and signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. That letter is one of no objection as well. Next, a letter coming from the Finance Department dated August 18th, indicating that they have no objections as there are no charges or outstanding amounts receivable at this point in time. That letter is signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. And then lastly, a letter of no objection coming from the Office of the Treasurer dated August 25th and signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Any questions for our planning staff? Mr. Ventura?
Mr. Toromina, at our study session, we had some conversation about the owner of the shopping center weighing in on the fact that this building is no longer conforming to the appearance of the rest of the center, and I wonder if in the interim you've heard anything from the owner of the shopping center.
I did speak to the owner, actually on a couple of occasions. He made it a point to visit the site and then called me back. He reminded me of the original intent when this structure was built, when they relocated the first Federal that was located near where the Bushes is located now, out to the front of the street. It was the intent at that time that the architecture of the bank match that of the rest of the center, which was remodeled at the time. So he felt that the changes that were made to the exterior of this building were not consistent with the Planning Commission and City Council's review and approvals at that time. He did not object to the fact necessarily that there were changes. He just questioned whether or not there was a better color scheme, one that would be more appropriate in being consistent with the original approvals. My conversation with him, he seemed to object mostly to the bright color green, that he felt that that is something that probably should be modified to something less contrasting, if you will, with the shopping center.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions? Mr. Bonjero?
So, all this work was done. There was a lot of work there. And did the bank, was it required they got permission from the land? You know what I'm saying? There's like some,
No,
where's this going?
that part of it is a little vague. While there is language in the agreement, this is a land lease. And while apparently there is some language relative to architectural compatibility, I'm not sure, I haven't seen that language. The owner did not indicate that per the agreements, there was enough for him to do anything beyond just express his opinion to the Planning Commission.
So is it an option to paint the ephes
The-
and leave the wood in the front kind of matches the mall?
Yeah, he wouldn't, he has no control over that.
Gotcha.
But he wanted to remind us of the original intent, and that was clearly spelled out in the proceedings of the minute. So I did read those, and it was clear that it was the intent to match the architecture. Siegel Tumalo was the architect of this building. They were also the architect of the shopping plaza, and it was clear from the design that it was intended to match. And that was something that was pointed out during the review process and was, I think, highly considered at the time when the decisions were made by both the Planning Commission and City Council.
This is back, right? So
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the year. I
Yeah.
think I may have referenced it in the staff report, but yeah. Early 90s, maybe.
So it's really not enforceable, or we don't know?
It's, well, in terms of enforceable by the landlord,
Yeah.
that we don't, that I don't know.
So
I got the impression that no, this is really on the city to make the ultimate decision. And he's looking for our best judgment in whether or not that we're adhering to the original conditions.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any other questions for our planning staff? If not, we can go to the petitioner. His representative is here. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name's Paul Gagel. I'm a project manager with Citizens Bank, 27777 Franklin Road, Southfield, Michigan, 48034.
Thank you, Mr. Gagel. And what else would you like to tell us about this petition?
Well, first of all, as been mentioned, this was after the fact. During our due diligence period, the architect that we engaged at the time did not find the ordinance, and then we submitted our plans for review. They went to the city like we normally do for our review. We received no comments back on the exterior that another step was necessary for the exterior work. So we proceeded with the plans, and we executed on the plans based on the permit that was issued. Because the plans included exterior and interior work, we just proceeded, 100% with the plans. And during the course of construction, there were multiple inspectors that came out during the course of the project. No one flagged anything or said anything till after the fact. And that's what brought us to where we're at now. So,
Okay, and we'll see if there's any questions from any of our commissioners regarding your project. Mrs. Smiley?
Excuse me, just to be clear, the city inspectors came out and inspected all your stuff, your painting and your,
yes,
and everything, and never said a word?
not till after we were done. They were on site for rough electrical, framing, all the inspections, the final building, life, fire, safety. And then at the end of the project, this came out that we missed a step. We inadvertently missed a step on both sides, our side, plus, in my opinion, so the city comment during the plan review that while all the details were called out, including the paint specs, the portal that we've talked about, were all called out on the plans, but we never received any comment back from the plan reviewer that another process was needed. So,
Mr. Toromino, who would the plan reviewer be?
I really don't know who it was in this particular case. There's 3 different plan reviewers, or there were at the time, so who actually reviewed it?
From like the inspection department?
They work with the inspection
They're not from
department.
the plan?
Yeah, it was my understanding that the permits specifically excluded any exterior work. And that was missed by the contractors. They must have assumed that the plans were approved as submitted, which did show the exterior work, even though it was excluded from the permit. The inspectors would not have inspected the painting. That's not something that they would do. If you're an electrical inspector, you're there to inspect the electrical work, not the exterior. The same with the other mechanical and other trades. I don't know about any building inspectors, if they were on the site and, when it came to the structural elements like the tower, if they actually reviewed that or not. I can't answer that, but it's water under the bridge now, and, we've had that discussion with the inspection department, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bonjero?
So, my opinion, this is an issue that needs to be settled between citizens and the landlord, because obviously something must have been enforceable if the building department came out at the end and say, hey, we missed a step. There was some step that needed to be taken, right? What was the step?
That step, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Sure, Mr. Toromino.
that step was to go first before this body and the city council for approval. And the reason, again, is that this is located within an overlay district. It's called our Special Area Development Control Zone, where exterior alterations to buildings first require the approval of the planning commission and city council.
Okay,
So that's the step that was missing clearly.
so is that kind of like what we're doing now, or?
The landlord is my understanding after my discussion with him, yes, that is what we're doing now.
That's what we're doing now.
Again, after the fact. It's
Yeah.
my understanding the landlord does not have direct control over the exterior alterations. That's not something that was spelled out in the lease
You can't
documents.
enforce it. We don't think.
That's my understanding,
Okay.
correct.
So are you willing to talk it out with them and come to a resolution?
Yes, actually, I have had a conversation with Mr. Frankel on this, and the green, it's a little too much green. He asked if we could soften the green. And the conversation I had with him on Friday was he would look forward to seeing what the architect would recommend on doing that and softening the green. And I did submit some current photos from last Thursday. They were submitted to the city for that, to show that. But even on the rendering there, you can see that there's 2 levels of green in that ephes. So there's a dividing line. I mean, it's something we can look at and maybe separate that and find a color that softens the green, but yet matches everything else on the building, plus include the whole center itself, which would be more amicable to the landlord, to the owner of the property.
Yeah, that seems like a good move right there.
Can I ask, he likes the painted brick?
My conversation with him was, I told you, it's not the white. He says, I don't like that much green, when I had the conversation with him. He did not object to the it's actually a pewter color. It looks white when the sun hits it. It looks like it's a white, but no, he did not object to that in my conversations with him.
The brick was in good shape and looked nice before you painted it. That's just my opinion. Sorry.
That's fine. Anyone else with any questions or comments? Mr. Ventura?
Mr. Gagel, at our study session, we talked about maintenance and the fact that we really don't have painted brick in the city because it ultimately deteriorates, and it does that rather rapidly. And so we asked for some kind of a maintenance schedule, and I note that attached, you provided a schedule here for inspections, but I don't see any maintenance committed to in the schedule.
You mean as far as repainting or touching
Yeah.
up?
Exactly.
Well, in the document that I submitted, let's consider it a living document, which is amendable, but it's in the document that every 2 years it would be assessed for repainting if needed, and then we would submit for our capital budget within the bank how we do that. But I've also done some other due diligence through the architect, and the paint, the durability of the paint is 5 to 10 years on this product that we used.
I understand exactly what, and that's, you're telling me what I understood from the
Okay.
submission. So my discomfort is that this gets lost in the cornflakes over time, and whether or not the inspections are done, somebody decides you don't have the money to do the painting. So it doesn't happen and the building deteriorates. And it is not in an inconspicuous location in that shopping center, and it is substantially non-conforming with the rest of the center. So it's either something you like and it's pleasant to look at, or it's an eyesore. But it could be a deteriorating eyesore if it's not maintained. And so what I'm going to suggest, or at least ask you, is would you agree to a commitment to repaint the building every 5 years?
I would have to take that back as a recommendation. I don't have absolute control over the budget. I certainly would strongly recommend and encourage that we do that, but I'd have to go to the powers that be within the bank to get that commitment.
Okay, the other, and I guess another fallback question is last week we discussed the other option, is what other latitude this board had, and that is just take the paint off. And which would you prefer?
I would not prefer to take the paint off. I think sandblasting to remove the paint would be detrimental to the building itself. It would cause some damage to the brick and the mortar, which would create pretty expensive repair for us, $50,000 to $60,000 to do all that and tuck point the entire building. So I would be very hesitant to do that. I would rather strongly advocate repainting the building every 5 years and make sure we have something in our plan within the bank that our facilities department knows they need to do that and just automatically build it in the budgets.
I guess the other, as you speak, the other thing that occurs to me is that something could be put over the brick at this point, since we painted it already, that wouldn't need maintenance, that might be more acceptable to this body than the painted surface. Is that an option for the bank?
When you say put something over it, are you talking about like a
I'm not an
face?
architect. I don't.
No, but I mean, are you talking like a face brick or something
Yeah,
like
right,
that?
yeah.
Well,
There's thin brick, there's thin brick.
There is the thin brick, and all those solutions have pros and cons. There's no doubt about it. We would have to do some due diligence, how it's adhered to the brick, what would happen with freeze-thaw expansion in the winter in different seasons. We would have to explore that. I would have to ask the architect to weigh in on that for the full pros and cons on that type of product.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, at this point, you're not willing to make any commitment to maintenance at all?
No, I just said that I would, instead of sandblasting, I would go back to the bank and say, we
Right.
need to
But,
build
I
this
mean,
into the
here
budget.
tonight for the purposes of this meeting.
For the purposes of this meeting,
Yeah,
yeah, I'll commit to painting every 5 years.
you will.
Sure.
Okay.
I will take that back to the bank. But you're asking me to commit to something.
Right, I am.
When I don't have absolute control over the
Got it.
purse strings.
Got it. I
So
understand.
if I don't have absolute control over the budget, I can't, I
Thank you for
can
that.
only take it so far.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Understandable, thank you. And any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? No one else? There's no one else in our audience wishing to speak on this item. Mr. Gagel, I do have one question for you. You've gone through this process, you're a project manager, so you've gone through this process for other sites as well?
We have, yes. We have done other properties like this with the same paint and finishes in other municipalities local to Livonia, yes.
Okay, and when you've gone through that process, you've normally had to go in front of a planning commission or a city council or anything, or do you just get a rubber stamp approval?
No, we've gone through Royal Oak, Dearborn Heights. They did not call out specifics on exterior of the building as two separate initiatives. It was all wrapped into one building permit.
Okay, so that may be part of why this process seems a little different to you than the processes you've experienced elsewhere.
Correct.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Gagel. If there's no other questions or comments from anyone, and there's no one in our audience wishing to speak on this, then a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Long.
I would like to offer an approving resolution that the request to remodel the exterior of Citizens Bank at 37307 6 Mile Road is hereby approved, subject to city council approval and the following conditions: that the exterior elevations plans identified as number A1.03 and number A1.04, both dated August 13th, 2021, as revised, prepared by Hellier Lewis Incorporated, are hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number two, that the petitioner shall submit a maintenance schedule to the inspection department, including the annual inspections of the exterior of the building. And to that, I would also like to add, and will repaint the building every 5 years. Number three, that the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department.
Is there support?
I'll support that.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Long, supported by Mr. Ventura. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bonjero.
So, with Glenn adding the 5-year repainting language, I know you said you'd commit to that, but in the end, you still have to get approval from the higher ups, right?
I'll get approval.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that's good
No, I
enough?
understand he's gotta run it up, but if they don't approve it, then
This
this
is done,
becomes
right?
null and void.
Okay.
And I actually, I want to amend what I said. I want to be clear that it has to be painted at least every 5 years. If the maintenance schedule, if the inspection department indicated that, you know, after 3 years it was an eyesore, I guess we'd want to be able to revisit that. So I'm not sure. I'm not, you know, I mean, I'm not, how do we memorialize that?
Probably, we would fashion language that would say something to the effect, shall be repainted upon recommendation of the inspection department, or at least every 5 years.
Or at least every 5 years.
something
So
to-
that's the amendment to my motion that I would
Mr. Long,
like to.
how about the dialing down the green? Are they gonna, is that included in the paint job?
That's not included in the paint, that's not included in my motion. It sounded like they were
Working that out?
working that out, and I'm not really sure that, I'm more concerned with the brick and the durability of the paint on the brick. I think that
Okay.
that's, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't entertain another change to my motion, but that's not anything that I,
I guess that's between them and the landlord, the new greens?
yeah,
Okay,
I'm fine with leaving that with them, but,
Okay.
but you guys can vote me down and we can start over if you'd like.
no,
Well, exactly. That's the whole point of having this conversation. We'll see what anyone else has to say about it, and we'll go from there. Any other comments,
not really.
questions? If not, if the secretary is ready, please call a roll on the motion to approve.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Ventura,
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley,
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh,
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Chair Magna votes aye, Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes no, motion passes, and that will go to city council with an approving recommendation. So I think we're all set. Mr. Gagel, thank you for coming this evening.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Your next step will be city council.
Okay, and what date is that?
They will inform you when the date is. It should be
Okay.
in the next few weeks. You'll
Okay,
get
great.
notice of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Secretary, we can go to item number 4 on our agenda.
Petition 2021-08-SN-02, submitted by Stark Road Holdings LLC, requesting signage approval pursuant to section 11.08 of Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance for recreational facility at 14255 Stark Road, located on the west side of Stark Road between Schoolcraft and Linden Avenue in the southeast quarter of section 21.
All right, Mr. Tormina.
Thank you. This is a request to install multiple wall signs on a building that is used primarily for indoor recreation. This is the former YMCA located on Stark Road. The property was zoned R2 one-family residential. It is now zoned N1 neighborhood district. The YMCA facility dates back originally to the early 1960s. It closed a year or two ago. And then earlier this year, a holding company by the name of Detroit Rising Development acquired the property and set into motion plans to transform the building into a multi-purpose, multi-tenant facility that is geared primarily for sports and athletic training. The facility will include indoor turf fields, a pool, a boxing, we've learned today, probably not a boxing gym, other courts, as well as private office space for physical therapy and sports medicine practices. In fact, a few of us had a chance to tour the facility this afternoon. The name given for the new business is the Livonia Athletic District, or LAD. The proposed signs are needed to identify the new use of the property. Signs for non-residential uses in an N1 district are regulated under section 11.08, and the ordinance allows only one 20-square-foot wall sign. Proposed on the east elevation, this is the side of the building facing Stark Road, the plan shows 2 main identification signs. The smaller one measures roughly 3 feet 11 inches by 15 feet for a total area of 59 square feet, and it reads Livonia Athletic District. That's the sign on the left, obviously. The other and larger sign is the company's logo that reads LAD, and that one measures 11 feet 4 inches by 10 feet, and it's roughly 121 square feet in area. Now, both signs would be painted on the exterior of the building, which is brick, and painting signs is prohibited under section 1105, and thus would be subject to approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Also shown on the east side of the building are several vinyl graphics that would be affixed to the existing windows. These graphics would advertise the building's various sporting activities. The plans show a total of 10 graphics, each measuring about 2 feet, 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet for 7 square feet. The graphics themselves would total roughly 70 square feet. And as we look on the north side of the building, there are 2 signs as well. One reads Livonia LAD Athletic District. That's the one shown here. And again, this is the side of the building facing north towards the parking lot. That sign would roughly be 189 square feet, as I said. Lastly, next to the main entrance is a 6 foot by 12 foot or 72 square foot sign that would be internally illuminated, and that would contain interchangeable panels that would identify the building's various tenants and uses. So altogether, the proposed 4 wall signs and 10 vinyl window signs measure a total of 511 square feet. And as I indicated, we did have a chance to visit the site today, and the petitioner is willing to bring forth changes and is seeking direction from the Planning Commission on that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence.
Yes, please.
First is a letter from the Inspection Department dated September 13th, and it reads, pursuant to your request, the above referenced petition has been reviewed, and the following is noted. A variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals would be required for the excess size and number of signs proposed. This department has no further objections, and that letter is signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. Next is a letter dated September 13th from the Department of Finance, and it reads, I have reviewed the address connected with the above noted petition. The following amounts are due to the City of Livonia: unpaid water and sewer charges in the amount of $778.78. And that letter is signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. And lastly, we have a letter dated September 17th from the Office of the Treasurer, and it reads, in accordance with your request, the Treasurer's Office has reviewed the name and addresses connected with the above noted petition. At this time, there are taxes due, and they are now delinquent, due September 14th, 2021, $55,145.46, good through September 30th of 2021. And that letter is signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. And that is the extent of the correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Any questions for our planning staff? Okay, petitioner is in the audience, I believe. If you'd like to come forward, you can help us understand the sign package here. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Joseph DeUrtai, 3991 Fieldview Avenue, West Bloomfield, Michigan, 48324.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And you have a sign package that you've presented to us. We've got a chance to talk to you a little bit at the study meeting about it. Is there anything else you would like to tell us about your request?
So after speaking with the partners of Stark Road Holdings, our intent is to maintain a rapport with the city, and we respect the fact that, brick is not allowed to be painted on. With that said, we just want to find out what is allowable from the city, and, we'll take measures to make sure that we can fit that need.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir. Let's see if there's any comments or questions from the Planning Commission that may help you along.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. McHugh.
I probably should have asked this of Mr. Toromina to begin with. Mark, can you clarify again what the allowable square footage is?
Only 20 square feet. Yeah,
Thank you.
pretty minimal.
So there's probably a couple things we need direction on, I guess. You look at the amount of signage allowable, and then you're trying to figure out what type of signage. So obviously, both of those things need to be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
That's a big difference. So I know that we had discussed a couple different thought processes as to how signs could be done a little more cheaply. I think Mr. Carmagno had come up with a couple ideas last week during our study session. Sorry, Sam, to drag you into the conversation. But I guess my question is have you come up with any other thoughts or any other suggestions or any other opinions about what type of signage you might be able to do rather than painting the brick?
Yes, the alternative would be some type of raised sign on some type of wood backing,
Okay,
and that's the only one we could come up with so far.
okay. And you found that to be economical for you?
Yes.
Because we understand the point here of what we're trying to do, right? We don't, signage is expensive, so
Yep.
I
Yes.
understand that.
So that wood backing would be economical for us, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. McHugh. Any other comments? Mr. Ventura?
I'll defer to Ms. Smiley.
No, I was just gonna say, speaking of expensive, are you aware of the tax bill and the other bills? on
Yes,
the
so
property?
that was taken care of either this week or late last week. So we should have, that payment was submitted earlier this week, so, or late last week, so.
Good, great. Have you had any other experience with athletic clubs or something like this?
Myself, yes. I opened up a 9,000 square foot micro facility, it was called, in Detroit. It was opened in 2017 through 2019. We closed in 2020, closed in 2020, due to COVID and so forth. And, there's been several partnerships with the city of Detroit, the city of Detroit Public Schools as well, that would bring their students and athletes to that facility.
Okay, and there was some mention of boxing, and then we eliminated boxing?
Correct.
Sounds good to me. All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley. That was a good segue on the financial element as well. Mr. Ventura?
As you know, Mr. Bonjero, Mr. Caramagno, and I were at the building today for a walkthrough, and one of the questions I asked was, how does the signage function for you guys? And it was described that the function, that this building was really gonna be broken down and sublet to a bunch of separate, different businesses within the building. And so it's not one big business. It'll be 3 or 4 or 5 smaller businesses, all under same roof. And that's accurate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so, I forget the gentleman's name, John,
Hartzell.
yeah, told us that the marketing of those buildings would be up to the individual businesses. So you're not gonna be promoting this building as such, but you're gonna be promoting the individual businesses within it. So, as you heard from our meeting last week, there's considerable heartburn over the amount of signage, 500 versus the 20 square feet. And so I see your directory signage illustrated on the building, which I guess would be where the individual businesses that are in the building would be identified. Where all the tenants are listed on the corner of the building. Mark, can you get that one up there?
Yeah, so.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, correct.
So I see a real need for that, because you're gonna have a bunch of people in there that are gonna wanna be identified.
Agreed.
And other than that, since that's not a high-traffic street, I mean, you're not gonna have a lot of people driving by. They're gonna go, oh yeah, there's a new gym. People are really gonna be using their GPSs, I presume, to find the building to go to whatever business they're trying to get to. I'd be in favor of, obviously more than 20 square feet, but something substantially less than the 500 square feet you guys are looking for. And I don't know that I want to make a suggestion in terms of square footage. I'd rather see you guys come back with a proposal that says, here's something that is lesser within the new sign format that you've indicated you would be agreeable to, and let us take a look at that, considering that the individual tenant signage, at least I personally feel, is something you're gonna need. And then you're also gonna wanna identify the building as LAD, I'm sure, but I don't know that we need 500 square feet of it, so,
Okay, I understand, and I can,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Ventura. Mr. Toromino, was there any thought you had?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, if there's a, I'd like to give some direction, and one thought would be to possibly look at this from the standpoint of if, or a commercial district, commercial use. It's commercial use now, I mean, that's where it's obviously that's what this is. So what we would allow in that case would be 1 square foot for every 1 foot of building frontage. And the building frontage, at least the part of the building closest to Stark Road, is about 140 feet in length. If you add this other part facing east, that's another 40 feet roughly. So 40 plus 140, so you're at approximately 180 square feet. Yeah, that might be some direction, is to maybe consider along the east elevation facing Stark Road, if you consider the graphics and this sign was roughly 60 square feet, the graphics were another 70 square feet, so they're at about 130 square feet just with this sign and with the graphics. That would eliminate the large logo unless you felt that something smaller would be appropriate, or if they wanted to rebalance this, include a smaller logo somewhere in the building and keep a sign. They've indicated they don't have any desire, or Mr. Hartzell indicated he has no plans to have a ground sign, so that would be removed from the site. So that's just a suggestion when we look at quantity over the type of sign. So.
Mr. Ventura?
Mark, so 130 square feet would be the windows, the logo between the windows, and the Livonia Athletic District sign to the upper left corner of the building?
No, this sign is roughly 60 square feet.
So then you'd be close to 200.
And then when you add the logos, that's 70. So 60 plus 70, that's the 130,
Okay.
not including this logo.
But he can get 100.
That logo itself is 121 square feet.
Okay,
But he can get 180.
You can get 180, yeah. I mean, if that's what
yeah,
you're willing to consider, that would leave another 50 square feet potentially for another sign on the building, on the front of the building. Then now, they do have, I will point out though, that this tenant sign is on the east entry. So this does face Stark Road. That's correct, Joe?
that's correct.
Yeah, so that would be on, no, I'll have to zoom in on that part of the building. That would be, I think, here?
That's right.
Yeah. So technically that would face, so you'd have to add, that's another 6 by 12, that's another 72 square feet facing east.
so we'd be right at 200 at that point.
That would be,
Yeah.
230, 220, right?
well, you'd have.
130 and 70, right? I think is what we said.
Yeah, 200, correct.
Oh, okay, I think so.
If you included just the three, if you included the logo signs, the logos plus that one main identification sign plus this sign would be right roughly at 200 square feet. A little bit over the 180 feet of frontage that they have. If you measure the building from this point to
I
this
guess I'd
point.
ask the petitioner at this point what you'd prefer. Would you like us to, follow Mr. Toromino's recommendation and, somehow provide you with a couple hundred square feet of signage? Or would you prefer to come back to us with your own ideas about how you do the signage?
Yeah, I would have to get feedback from all the partners in that sense. In my opinion, I would love to have all the signage proposed. It is, Stark Road is a quiet area, and anything that we can do to, promote the lad and then the tenants is a benefit to everyone. So I would have to get feedback from my
So you'd
partners.
prefer to come back to us with,
Yes.
All right,
okay, thank you.
that's reasonable. Mrs. McHugh?
The other thing, and maybe I'm crazy, because I know once you've designed something like this, right, you've got a passion for it, but those decals are repeating themselves, am I correct? Could you minimize some of those, potentially?
That's a good consideration.
Because that just seems like a lot of, that's kind of wasting some of your square footage, if you could get representation of the sports that are in there, but not repeat on the same wall. Just a thought.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Caremagna?
Mr. Chair, I got to say, when I was there with my colleagues earlier, I saw a rendering on the inside of the building that was attractive, and I haven't seen that presented to us last week or tonight. That was attractive and was eye-catching. I liked it. I would say that I got to agree with everyone else. Painting the brick is not anything that I'd like to see. Nor would I like to see a sign put on wood and wood bolted to the building. I don't know, plywood, wood, I don't know. I see that as being a maintenance nightmare. I think if you're going to put something on that building that's not going to be block signs or illuminated box letters, I'd like to see something on an aluminum panel that's screwed to the wall where it doesn't fade, it doesn't deteriorate, it doesn't need painting, something that will last a long time, and hopefully this project for you lasts forever. As far as the square footage goes, I mean, a couple hundred square feet on a building this size, to me, is fair, is fair. I'd almost even go 250. This is a huge building, huge building. The only other thing I'd like to comment on is, I don't recall seeing an address on the building. Is there an address on this building?
There is.
Where?
It's really small. It's actually near that picture right there to the right. I don't know if you have a shot of that. It's where the doors are on the left.
Oh, we don't have to find it now, but what my point is, if someone's looking for my house doesn't say Caremagna on top of it, it's got an address, and you look for that address to find your building.
Right.
So I don't think addresses are used enough these days to find a building. I think your address should be prominent on this building somewhere, facing Stark Road.
Yeah. and-
Facing the parking lot's no good. So that's my last point, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagna. And we will try to not look for your house with the big Caremagna sign on the
Look
roof.
for the big American flag.
There you go.
I have a smiley face on my door.
There you go. Any other questions or comments? If there's no other, I'll just say that my general feeling is along the lines of Mr. Caremagno's, that something other than wood that's going to be a more durable material would be preferred, either aluminum or a plexi material, or something that is going to be long-lasting, durable, but you can illuminate from ground lights or whatever you're trying to do, within a reasonable budget. I know that an internally illuminated sign is a much more expensive thing, and you're trying to come up with the best low-cost option you can, so hopefully that'll help a little bit. And it also gives you the opportunity to then change that sign if you upgrade your logo or other things happen in the future. So if there's no other questions or comments, Mr. Bonjero?
Just one quick comment on
Go ahead.
to Sam's point. That building's huge. We were there today, and it does command 250 square feet of signage. There's no doubt. And the way it's set up, it's not flat all the way across.
Right.
You could definitely get away with that much, for sure. My opinion. So, thank you.
Well, and excellent, and to that point, the frontage of the building is significantly less than the depth of the building.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very significant building in depth, so we're not even factoring that into this,
Mr. Chair.
at this point. Mr. McHugh?
There still, though, would obviously go back to the to ZBA, right, for the signage after,
Yeah.
after we've looked at it. then
Anything
we
over
get to-
20 square feet's going.
So just note to self, right? That you'll get to do that as well.
Yeah, the joy of this process is not only do you go through us, but you're gonna have to go through council and ZBA, so it's,
Get to know a lot of people.
you're gonna get 3 shots at this.
Wonderful, thank you.
Good friends.
Be an expert by the time it's over.
Yeah. You'll be loving Livonia.
You'll be our coach. We'll
Good.
Exactly. If there's no other questions or comments, there is no one else in the audience to speak on this item, so I will look back to my fellow commissioners to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura?
No, I'm good.
in accordance with the petitioner's wishes, I'm going to propose that we put this petition on the table and for future consideration, and let him get back to his management team and come back to us with a proposal that conforms with the comments that he's heard here tonight.
I think that's an excellent idea. Is there support for that motion?
Support.
All right, we have a motion to table by Mr. Ventura, supported by Mrs. Smiley. There is no discussion on tabling motions. If the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mr. Ventura?
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley?
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh?
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Caremagna votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, motion passes. The item has been tabled to a date uncertain. Well, that'll give you some time, sir, to go back to your partners and discuss what you've heard tonight, come up with some new plans and some ideas, and you can come back to us. We'll discuss them and hopefully get you taken care of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Good night.
We'll look to see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
And we have one item left on our agenda, Mr. Secretary.
That item is the approval of the minutes of the 1,175th public hearing and regular meeting held by this planning commission on August 31st, 2021.
Very good, and all members were present for that meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve.
By Mrs. Smiley, supported by
Support.
Mrs. McHugh. I don't believe there's any discussion necessary for the minutes. If there's no objection, I think we can safely show 7 to approve the minutes. No one is objecting, so we'll make that so. That takes us to the end of our agenda this evening. Is there any other business to come before the Planning Commission? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagno. Is there support?
Support.
By Mr. Bonjero. And again, this is a motion to adjourn. Is there any discussion on this? If not, if there's no objection, I think we can safely show 7 to adjourn the meeting tonight. And that will take us to the end of our meeting. I do want to thank Livonia Television staff for bringing this meeting to the community. And we want to wish a good evening to our community, and we will see you at our next meeting. Good night, Livonia.